Well, I think the Prime Minister left Australia at a difficult time. She had big domestic challenges with respect to carbon price. She went to the US, where the big issue for Obama was also a domestic one. It's really about budget cuts in the US. So I don't think there was any reason to expect big substantive movements on this trip. But the symbolism was what Julia Gillard would have wanted, and I think she got it in spades. I don't think it was unexpected beyond the emotions. The policy issues she went through were really the big ones forward-looking for Australia and the United States, beginning with the China challenge and emerging Asia. But I think the emotions were important because they tell you just how deep the values and interests shared between Australia and the US are. There is self-interest, but it's certainly shared values as well. You know, is promotion of democracy and free markets self-interest or values? I think the answer is it's both. It's also an integral part of the history of both countries. So I think that's one of the reasons the alliance is so strong. All of the elements of it are self-reinforcing, and that's why the cliche really holds. It goes from strength to strength. I think the big thing to start with there is the difference between the China challenge and the challenge posed by the Soviet Union. So 60 years ago, when the alliance was formed, it was obviously in the early days of the Cold War. We'd just come out of World War II. The Soviet Union was an enormous political military challenge to Australia, the US and the West, but it wasn't an economic challenge at all. The Soviet Union just wasn't part of the world capitalist economy. Contrast that with China, where I think it's the leading edge of China's rise is an economic one. China is central to the world economy today. It's central to Australia because of minerals, to the US because the US borrows a lot of money from China. If you think about that side of it, China is a good news story, I think, economic benefits. But of course, there's this residual concern: what kind of world power will China be? So that's why I think Henry Kissinger actually is right to say that China's rise is just different. Don't think about the possibility of a second Cold War. The emerging Asia is going to create some challenges, yes, but also some possibilities that certainly weren't there during the old Cold War. If you look at the big changes in the world from 1950 to today, I'd highlight two. The first one is, the emergence or re-emergence of Asia on the global stage. But the second one, broadly understood, is globalisation. And I think the big consequence of globalisation is that there's been a blurring of the difference between domestic policy and international policy. Take, for example, sustainability. Australia's having a carbon tax debate, but that debate's really in the context of international policy. Will there be global action? I think there are a lot of issues like that today. So the alliance isn't only about political military affairs, it's about how to deal with this whole complex of issues surrounding globalisation. The 21st Century Alliance project was supposed to align to the new realities of the new century. So absolutely we'll want to look at emerging Asia and how Australia and the United States together can best participate and shape the trajectory of the Asia-Pacific century, if that's what we're living in. Obviously, we want to have some defence and some security components, but those are evolving too. We're talking a lot now about intelligence sharing, about cybersecurity, not only about military bases, but we also want to have some of the things that might look a little unusual for an alliance project. Look at trade and investment, look at education and innovation, and at the complex of sustainability issues. So really quite broad-based, but I think that reflects where the relationship is today and where it's going to go in the future.